In this video, you are about to witness the exact moment the unbreakable symbol of hope finally collapses under the weight of the world, triggering a catastrophic chain reaction where Superman stops holding back, stops trusting anyone, and turns against every hero, villain, god, and army that dares to stand in his way, transforming Earth into the center of a terrifying global showdown filled with emotional loss, absurdly overwhelming power, dark humor born from sheer disbelief, and a version of the Man of Steel so unstoppable that the entire DC universe is forced to unite in a desperate last-stand effort to survive what happens when Superman decides everyone else is the enemy. The story begins on a day that should have been ordinary, the kind of quiet moment that only exists because Superman has spent years preventing catastrophe before it ever begins. Hovering above the planet like an invisible guardian, listening to the pulse of humanity and carrying the constant burden of saving everyone while never allowing himself to feel the full weight of what that responsibility truly costs. For decades, Superman has restrained his power, trusting flawed systems, believing in redemption, and pulling every punch with surgical precision. But what the world never realizes is that this restraint is not a natural state. It is a deliberate, exhausting act of will that must be maintained every single second. And when one irreversible tragedy shatters that focus, the consequences are immediate and devastating. The event itself is sudden, senseless, and final. The kind of loss that does not inspire anger at first but instead creates a hollow silence so profound that even a god feels small inside it. And as the shock ripples across the planet, heroes wait for Superman to react the way he always does, with compassion, forgiveness, and hope. Yet this time the sky remains empty, the silence stretches, and something fundamental changes. When Superman finally moves, it is not with rage or spectacle but with absolute certainty, and the first signs of his shift are subtle but terrifying: criminals subdued permanently instead of arrested, conflicts ended with finality instead of compromise, and disasters prevented with overwhelming force rather than careful restraint, signaling to the world that Superman is no longer interested in persuasion. At first, global leaders and civilians breathe a sigh of relief, mistaking efficiency for peace as wars end overnight and crime rates plummet to zero. But beneath the surface, fear grows rapidly because everyone understands the unspoken truth that Superman has quietly positioned himself above all authority, operating as judge, jury, and executioner, and no one possesses the power to overrule him. The Justice League is the first to fracture under the pressure, with members divided between loyalty, fear, and moral outrage. And while some believe Superman's actions are necessary to save the world, others recognize the horrifying precedent being set, knowing that a god who decides right and wrong without accountability is not a protector but an absolute ruler. Batman, having prepared for this scenario long before anyone else dared to imagine it, activates his contingency plans with grim efficiency, deploying countermeasures designed specifically to neutralize a rogue Kryptonian. Yet each strategy fails almost instantly, not because they are flawed, but because Superman anticipated them years ago, adapting, evolving, and now effortlessly dismantling every safeguard meant to stop him. As resistance escalates, Superman responds with clinical precision rather than fury, neutralizing threats before they can even coordinate intercepting attacks, mid-thought, and demonstrating a terrifying level of perception that borders on omniscience, turning the battlefield into a one-sided lesson in futility that leaves even the most powerful heroes stunned by how outmatched they truly are. Dark humor emerges in the chaos as villains abandon their schemes. Cosmic threats reroute entire invasions away from Earth, and alien civilizations mark the planet as forbidden territory because the idea of drawing Superman's attention becomes the most terrifying consequence imaginable, a galactic punchline written in fear rather than laughter. The scale of the conflict grows rapidly as gods, speedsters, magic users, and entire armies join the fight, but nothing slows Superman, whose power continues to escalate as restraint fades completely, unlocking levels of strength, speed, and awareness never before witnessed, turning each confrontation into a reminder that the Man of Steel was never meant to be challenged, only trusted. Emotionally, the story reaches its peak as Superman stands against everyone he once called allies, not out of hatred, but out of a cold belief that this path is the only way to prevent endless suffering, revealing a tragic irony in which the hero who loved humanity the most now believes humanity must be controlled to survive itself. The world begins to realize that this is no longer a battle that can be won through force, because Superman is not fighting for dominance or revenge, but for a twisted version of peace, one where fear replaces hope and obedience replaces freedom. And this realization hits harder than any punch ever could. In the final moments, Superman hovers above a planet that has fallen silent, victorious, but isolated, surrounded by the wreckage of alliances, ideals, and trust, understanding too late that by fighting everyone, he has truly become alone, the ultimate protector turned ultimate threat, leaving the DC universe forever changed and permanently aware that its greatest danger was never an external invasion, but the day the Man of Steel finally snapped. If you enjoyed this full story breakdown, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this video so the Nerd Multiverse can keep delivering epic, emotional, and unforgettable superhero stories.